The hall at the twins stank of roasted meat and river damp, of sour wine and the old man's pride. Music skirled thinly from the gallery, a quick, piping tune Robb did not know. Phrase capered drunkenly between the trestle tables, bright in ragged motley and dull in dun wool and patched leather all at once. A mismatched pack of men who had never quite belonged to one another and never would. Above them all, Walder Frye sat hunched in his carved chair beneath the crossed towers, flesh sagging and eyes sharp as fishhooks, counting every slight. Robb wore no crown, only a simple circlet of bronze about his brow. It felt heavier than any helm he had worn into battle. His sword belt had been removed at the door. They had taken Grey Wind as well, though he had not let them take him far. The dire wolf paced in the yard beneath his window, and Robb could feel the faint echo of his restlessness in the back of his skull, an itch that would not be soothed. "Your Grace," Catelyn murmured at his shoulder, her voice low. "You are frowning." He looked at her. His mother's face was lined deeper than when they had left Winterfell. Grief had carved new channels there, for Bran and Rickon and Ned both, for all they had lost. Her auburn hair, once so thick, threaded with gray now. But her eyes were as sharp as the old man's across the hall. "I don't like the song," he said lightly. "Too shrill." "It's not the song." Catelyn's fingers tightened around her cup. "The musicians." Robb listened. Pipes and fiddles, a dull drum. Men's feet thumped time on the gallery floor. He heard nothing amiss, but the hair at the back of his neck prickled all the same. Grey Wind's dissatisfaction crawled under his skin again. The dire wolf hated being caged, hated these walls so much that when Robb had tried to quiet him with thought and calm, he had only sent back hot, red anger. Robb lifted his cup and forced a smile for the Frye girl beside him. Rosalind, that was her name, a shy thing with eyes that filled whenever she looked at him, as if marrying him pained her. That pricked him with guilt. He had not meant to make a stranger's heart ache, only to mend his own folly. Jane's face rose unbidden in his mind, then Talisa's, depending which telling the singers would one day choose. Whatever the truth of her name, the weight of his broken oath had been real enough. He had sent his love away with a small escort and all the gold he could spare, for a quiet life in the West, and carried the shame of her tears with him for every step it took to cross the neck. He would have liked to think this marriage would wash him clean. Instead, the Frey's smiles never quite reached their eyes. "The bread and salt were eaten," he said to his mother, keeping his mouth near the rim of his cup so none but she would see his lips move. "We are guests beneath his roof. Walder Frye has never kept faith with anyone but himself." Catelyn's eyes never left the old man. "He is counting, Robb. Everything." Robb's gaze slid along the high table. Black Walder whispered something to Lothar, and they both laughed, their shoulders shaking. A boy servant leaned in too close and too long to fill a Frye knight's cup, and the knight cuffed him away. Across the hall, Ser Wendell Manderly's cheeks were flushed with wine and good cheer as he waved a drumstick at Ser Ryman. The great John roared with laughter at some jest, slamming his fist on the table hard enough to rattle the plates. Bolton sat pale and still as milk, his small, strange smile never wavering. Bolton. Something in that pale gaze made him think of knives laid out in a neat row. Robb had wanted to send the man north weeks ago. He had not. There had been too many fires to stamp out at once. At the doors of the hall, Robb glimpsed a shadow move. Steel glinted briefly in torchlight before disappearing behind a Fryguard's leg. It might have been nothing. It might have been everything. Grey Wind's anger flared sharp in his mind, like a bark pressed into thought. Bars, stone, torch smoke. Men he did not trust above, men with wrong-smelling fear. The dire wolf paced, then threw himself against the gate of his cage in the yard. Robb's breath caught. He felt the impact in his ribs. He pushed back from the table. "Your Grace." Rosalind's hand fluttered to her throat. "I will speak with Lord Walder," he said. "I have been remiss. A husband should thank his wife's grandfather." "You already have," Catelyn murmured. "I will thank him again," Robb replied low. "And ask that Grey Wind be brought nearer." I don't care if they hate it. I won't have him penned out there like a dog. Robb. He did not wait for her to finish. Rising, he forced another smile onto his lips and crossed along the high table toward the old man in his carved chair, feeling all eyes turned toward him. The music did not falter, but it shifted. The drums slowed. The tune soured somehow between one step and the next. Walder Frey's pale, watery gaze flicked up as Robb stopped before him. "Leaving us so soon, Your Grace?" Walder rasped. His voice was thick with age and phlegm. "The betting's not yet begun. Thought you young wolves were wild for such sport." Robb bowed his head slightly in formal respect. "I meant no discourtesy, Lord Frey. I only wanted to beg another favor of you." He pitched his voice to Carrie, giving it the formal cadence of a king. "Let them all hear. My dire wolf grows restless penned in your yard. He is my sigil and oath, more than any crown. Let him be led to the gates of your hall, that I may feel him near." Walder's lips peeled back from his stained teeth. "A wolf in my halls? I think not. Dangerous beasts. He will remain without, chained if you insist." Robb's smile did not waver, but his fingers itched to curl to fists. "He is mine, as I said, and under guest right as much as any man." Murmurs ran along the tables. To speak of guest right aloud was its own kind of accusation. Walder's eyes narrowed. "Guest right," he repeated. "You question my honor under my own roof?" Robb's blood pounded in his ears. He had not meant to force the old man to say it aloud, but the words were out now like arrows loosed. "I only wish to remind us all of what binds us here tonight. The bread and the salt, the songs, the oaths we have sworn anew." Walder stared at him long enough that the silence grew uncomfortable. The music stuttered and resumed, weakly, like a man who had tripped and decided to keep walking as if nothing had happened. One of the pipers hit a sour note and cursed under his breath. "Very well," the Lord of the Crossing said at last, in a voice that sounded as though it cost him something to use. "Fetch the beast to the gate. But if it tears out any throats, I'll hold you to account, boy." "Of course," Robb said. "You have my thanks." As he turned away, he saw the flicker of something like fury in Black Walder's face, quickly masked. Lothar hobbled off with his uneven gait toward the doors, 2 guards falling in behind him. "Bold," Caitlin said when Robb returned to his seat. "He deserves bold." Robb's hands shook as he reached for his cup. He forced them still. If he meant mischief, he'll have to think again with a dire wolf at his door. "And if he meant nothing," Caitlin said, but her eyes went to Bolton, sitting pale and neat. "If he meant nothing, he will still have been reminded that guest right is no trifle." The music picked up again, faster, a different tune now. He recognized it belatedly as the Rains of Castamere, robbed of its somber pride and given a jester's pace. It was still an ill-chosen song, and it set half his hackles up. "Do you hear that?" Caitlin whispered. "Why that song?" "The Lannisters aren't here," Robb said. "Are you certain?" She was looking at Bolton now, and at 1 or 2 other faces that did not belong to Frey's. A tall man in crimson and gold, his cloak thrown carelessly back to reveal a lion embroidered on his doublet's breast, raised his cup at the Great John from halfway down the hall. Robb's tongue went dry. There should not have been lions here. He was getting to his feet again, the words forming on his tongue. Who wears a lion in a wolf's presence? When gray winds panic slammed into him like a blow. Men, fire. The direwolf's vision, blurred with rage, showed him torch flames over stone. A spear point thrust between bars, hot pain in muscle and bone. Robb did not think. He moved. "Down!" he roared, shoving Rosalind from her seat as he seized the edge of the high table and heaved. Platters and cups and trenchers of meat went tumbling, crashing to the floor in a spill of ale and mutton and silverware just as the first crossbow bolt hissed through the air where his chest had been a heartbeat before. Chaos erupted. Men shouted. Tables went over. Dogs barked wildly. The music cut off with a shriek of strings as one of the players toppled from the gallery with a quarrel protruding from his throat. A second bolt slammed into Sir Wendell Manderley's shoulder, spinning him around. A third stuck in a roast. The Great John bellowed in fury, seizing a bench as if it weighed no more than a child and hurling it at the gallery. Walder Frey's thin, reedy laugh cut through the uproar. "Loose!" he cried. "Loose, you fools!" They were already loosing. The gallery bristled with crossbowmen in Frey livery, their faces hard, strings twanging again and again. Some arrows hit their marks, some didn't. Robb saw Daisy Mormont spin with a bolt in her thigh and fall, snarling curses even as she tried to rise. Saw Lord Karstark's bastard son shove a serving girl behind a pillar. He heard his mother scream his name. Bolton had not moved. His pale eyes watched, measuring. Robb grabbed a carving knife from the wreckage of the table and flung himself toward the old man's chair. Walder had guards. The first came lunging from the side, sword half drawn, too late. Robb slammed into him shoulder first, bearing them both to the rushes. The man's sword went clattering away. Robb drove the knife into the gap of his mail at the throat and felt the shudder as it found its way between bone and sinew. "Robb!" Catelyn's voice came again, sharp with command. "To me!" She held a fallen shield in one hand, a serving knife in the other, her red hair coming loose from its pins. Crossbows twanged overhead. One bolt ricocheted from the table's appended underside and hummed away into the rafters. The Frey's cheer of surprise at being opposed turned quickly to anger. "Seize them!" Walder shrieked. "Seize the wolf!" Robb did not have his sword. He had no armor, only a leather doublet and a feast day tunic thick with embroidery now spattered with wine and blood. But he had spent the last years in war, and his body remembered. He kicked the dead guard's shoulder hard enough to wrench the knife free and ducked as another quarrel flew past. The Great John had taken a sword from somewhere, a massive thing with a chipped edge. He waded into the rush of Frey men-at-arms streaming from the side doors, roaring, cutting one down with each swing. Behind him, small folk servants ran in all directions, some shrieking, some trying to help and getting in the way. A wedding guest in Frey colors stabbed Sir Helman Tallheart in the back as he turned to answer a call, then shrank back in sudden terror as Tallheart fell and the Gretchen's bloody eyes found him. "Mother!" Robb seized Catelyn's arm and dragged her toward the end of the hall where the door to the inner stair lay half-hidden behind a woven tapestry. "The stairs. We have to get out." "Grey wind," Catelyn gasped, her eyes wild. "Robb, I know." His chest burned with that same distant pain. The dire wolf was fighting still, but the pain was becoming a dull, hot flood, the world narrowing to teeth and iron and fire. "We can't help him if we die here." Bolton had risen at last, slowly, carefully, like a man who did not wish to stain his boots. His gaze. He met Robb's across the hall. In that pale, unreadable face, Robb saw knowledge. He saw choice as well. Bolton could cross the hall to him now in 3 strides and put a blade in his back, as he had once done to another northern king, if the whispers that followed him were true. Instead, Roose turned deliberately and moved toward a side door, calling for his men to follow. Something inside Robb went very cold. He almost turned aside, almost seized the man there and slit his throat. But another volley from the gallery cracked against the overturned table behind him, showering them with splinters. His mother yanked at his sleeve. "Robb!" They reached the tapestry as 2 Frey swordsmen barred their way, moving to cut them off. Robb's knife met the first man's blade. The shock of the clash jarred his arm to the shoulder. He pivoted, using his own momentum to slam the man into the stone pillar. The knife went under the man's jaw. Catelyn ducked beneath the second man's swing and drove her smaller blade up under his mail, a mother's strength behind it. Her face was grim and set. The tapestry hid a narrow door. Robb slammed it open with his shoulder, shoved Catelyn through, and followed, dragging the door closed behind them just as another quarrel thudded into the wood on its far side. The stair beyond was steep and narrow, twisting up. A servant went sprawling as they barreled past him. "Robb!" Catelyn gasped as they climbed. "Your men will live or die on their own steel now." Robb said hoarsely, his chest heaving. He could barely breathe past Grey Wind's pain. The direwolf's thoughts were distant now, like echoes down a deep well. If I die, the North dies with me. I will not give them that. By the time they reached the top of the stair, the music and the screams were muffled by stone. Robb's legs burned. They emerged into a narrow gallery overlooking the river. Through an arched window, he could see torches flaring in the yard below, men rushing this way and that. The kennel beneath the outer tower was a knot of shadow and light. Grey Wind's cage was there, its bars twisted where something massive had hurled itself again and again at them. The cage door hung broken. So did the dire wolf. They had speared him from a distance, it seemed, firing through the broken bars until he had ceased moving. His gray fur was dark with blood, his jaw still bared in a snarl that showed every tooth. 3 men lay near him mute in the torchlight, their throats torn out. The rest had kept their distance and finished the work with spears and crossbows. Robb's hand found the stone of the window's edge. He did not remember choosing to lean there, only that suddenly he needed it or his knees might have given way. A slow, horrible emptiness settled where the bond had been, and for a heartbeat there was nothing in him but that absence, as if someone had torn out a piece of his own flesh and left a gaping hole. He did not weep. He could not yet. There was too much to do. "Come, mother," he said, his voice sounding strange to his own ears. "We have to flee. The river. The bridges will be held," Catelyn said, looking down. Her voice shook, but her mind was working. "He will not leave them open when his treachery is unmasked. Then we swim." The thought of the cold black water below made his skin crawl, but river water was better than fry steel. "Or we take a horse and ride through. You will be recognized. Then we'll not give them the chance." They found the servant's stair by memory and chance both, winding down toward the foundations. Twice they had to duck into shadow as groups of Fry men-at-arms thundered past, their boots clattering on stone, shouting to one another. The sounds from the great hall were dying now. The cries of the wounded had grown thin. Once, Robb heard the Greyjoy's roar cut off in a choked gurgle and forced himself not to think of what that meant. In the stables, the stablemaster lay in his own hay, his eyes open and empty. A dead horse blocked half the aisle, its throat cut. Someone had tried to burn the straw, but too hastily. The fire had not caught and only left blackened patches on the floor. "Here," Catelyn hissed. "This way." The far end of the stable opened onto a smaller postern gate that led beneath the bridge arch. It was chained, but chains could be cut. Robb found an axe in a dead man's hand and brought it down on the rusted iron with all the strength in his arms. The clang of it rang painfully loud. Somewhere above them shouted voices answered. The third strike broke the chain. The gate swung outward, protesting on its hinges. Beyond lay the river, black and swollen under a sky full of clouds and smoke. The far bank was a smear of shadow. "Go," Robb said, seizing a half-broken horse's reins where it hung over a stall door. The mare's eyes rolled white, panicked, but she stayed when he murmured to her, "Ride hard, don't look back. Take any who follow. And you," Catelyn's eyes were too bright, "I will hold the gate until you're clear. You are my son." There was a fierceness in her voice that startled him. "I will not leave you to die alone at some god's-forsaken door in the Twins. Then we ride together." He almost laughed at the absurdity of arguing. "Mount." They burst from the shadows a moment later, hoofs striking sparks from the stones, the mare snorting with fear and exertion. 2 Fry men turned toward them on the bridge, their faces slack with surprise. Robb's borrowed axe took the nearer at the shoulder. The second scrambled backward, yelling. Arrows hissed down from the towers, one nicking the mare's flank. She lunged forward in blind terror, and suddenly they were over the arch and thudding down the far side, hoofs slipping on damp stone. The riverbank rose up at them. Robb wrenched the reins aside at the last instant, and they thundered along the shoreline instead of into the water. Upstream, a copse of willows bent low, over the current, their branches trailing like fingers. They plunged under the curtain of leaves and were swallowed in shadow. Behind them, Walder Frey's curses echoed over the water. They did not stop riding until dawn. By then, the twins were a distant smudge on the horizon behind them, and Robb Stark was no longer a guest beneath Walder Frey's roof. He was a hunted king with a dead direwolf and a dozen survivors scattered along the green riverside, gathering in ones and twos at the sound of his name. He would build something out of this ruin, or he would die trying. Years turned like ravens wheeling over a battlefield. The War of the Five Kings guttered and flared and guttered again, and in its ashes new fires smoldered, further east and north both. Robb Stark did not die at the twins. Songs would someday say otherwise, because songs loved a clean ending, and nothing about what followed was clean. He rode north with what men he could rally. Blackfish Tully with his grim, unyielding face. Manderly men whose lord had given his life in that treacherous hall. Karstark split between loyalty and old betrayal. The great Jon did not ride with him. The Freys had seen to that. But his sons did, their father's oaths burning in their eyes. Word of the red betrayal spread like a plague. When Robb crossed back into the Neck, reed men appeared from the bogs to guide him. At Moat Cailin, he found Ironborn entrenched and bitter as rust. He took it back with blood and cunning and fire, sending the last of the Kraken's men to the wall in chains. When he rode into Winterfell, the heart tree in the gods would shivered in the night wind, and snow began to fall. The ravens brought other tidings. King Joffrey choked and died at his own wedding, poisoned by hands unknown. Tywin Lannister was found dead on a privy, with his own sons bolt through his heart. Stannis Baratheon marched on the wall and broke the wildling host in fire and snow. Balon Greyjoy fell from a bridge. Tommen Baratheon, a boy king now, sat a throne carved from the bones of liars under the watchful eyes of a lioness queen. Let them gnaw on one another, Robb told his lords in the great hall, his voice echoing off stone that remembered his father's words. The North is ours. We will watch and we will wait. He had learned the price of southern crowns. He had worn one in blood and youth, and it had nearly killed him. Now, though his men still called him king in the north and set the direwolf standard proud upon Winterfell's walls, he wore no circlet on his brow. The scars on his soul were crown enough. Winter came creeping, pale-fingered and relentless. Snow buried the King's Road in drifts. The white knife froze along its edges. Ravens spoke of dead men walking in the lands beyond the wall, of blue eyes in ancient flesh and winds that killed. Robb listened and did not call them tales. Stannis sent a letter. Maester Luwin's successor said one harsh morning, holding out a cracked and dirty scroll. He claims that a bastard of your father's has risen to be Lord Commander of the Night's Watch. Jon Snow. Robb's throat tightened at the name. He had lit a lantern in the window of the broken tower every night since his return. A boy's superstitious hope that somehow his brothers would see it and find their way home. Bran and Rickon were dead, the ravens said. Of Jon Snow they had said nothing until now. He asks aid. The maester went on. Men, food, arms. He says that the true war is at the wall, not in the south. He says, here the maester hesitated, then read on, that the dead are not content to rest in their graves. In the great hall, the flames in the hearths cracked. Robb's hand tightened on the edge of his chair. He remembered stories, of course. Old Nan's tales of the others and the long night, of giants and white shadows and children of the forest with eyes like cats. He had dismissed them as tales, until the cold in the air felt like a living thing, and birds began to drop from the sky in mid-flight, frozen stiff. We will send him what we can, Robb said. Knives of dragonglass from the mountain flanks, old stores of oil. Men, though we have too few, we cannot stand alone when the dead come, not even behind these walls. What of the south? Wyman Manderly's heir asked, his belly not yet grown into his father's shape, but his eyes just as shrewd. We are still at war, your grace. The lion sits King's Landing still, and there's the Kraken yet, and Bolton's at the Dreadfort with swords that once were ours. The south can wait, Robb said. The dead will not. That winter, more than one raven came from the wall. One spoke of a king beyond it, a wildling chieftain with 100 clans at his back, trying to come south before the cold claimed them all. Another spoke of hard blue eyes in the darkness. Another brought but a single word scrawled in a hurried hand, as if the writer had run out of time. Help. Robb sent men and wished he could ride with them, but the north bled still from its old wounds. Wolves cannot run far on cut paws. He stripped the Dreadfort from Bolton treachery before the snows grew too deep, burning its flayed man banners and hanging his son where all the north might see. That too had a price. It was during the leanest of those winters that tales reached him from across the narrow sea of another fire rising. They came as drunken boasts from sailors in White Harbor at first, tall as any of old Nan's stories. A silver-haired queen with dragons at her call, who had broken chains in some distant city no one had heard of. A mother of monsters marching along a line of freedmen through a storm of spears and sling stones, fire wreathing her like a cloak. Dragons, Robb said, turning the word over in his mouth like a stone. We have not had dragons in the world for hundreds of years. Nor walking dead men, Caitlin said, her eyes on the snow drifting past the window. Yet your brother writes, oh, F them. My brother has never been a liar. Robb stared into the hearth. Drunk sailors, on the other hand, but the tales did not stop. They multiplied. A red priest from a distant land claimed that the Lord of Light had birthed a new Azor Ahai from smoke and salt and dragon's eggs. Trade ships from Bravos and Pentos brought rumors of a foreign queen holding court in Meereen, full of sharp questions about Westeros and the kings who tore it apart. A Carthene merchant with a forked beard swore by all his gods that he had seen a shadow pass over his deck in the night, vast and dark, with eyes like smoldering coals and wings like billowing sails. She has 3 of them, he said when pressed. The biggest of them could swallow a warhorse whole. I'll not be sailing near those waters again, I tell you true. 3 dragons, Robb said quietly, in the privacy of his solar, when the merchant was gone. And the dead at our door. Caitlin sat across from him, her hands folded on her lap. Time had carved her thinner, but her gaze had lost none of its iron. You think this woman might be the answer to both? I think, Robb said slowly, that a dragon queen who breaks chains and conquers slavers might look at a land bled dry by men like Walder Frey and Tywin Lannister and see something she can mend, or something she can ruin. It would be better to know which before she comes. She would have to cross the narrow sea first. There are storms enough between here and there, and your dragons are perhaps only smoke and words. Caitlyn's mouth tightened. But if she is real, and if she comes, her house and ours have old, tangled histories. Wolves and dragons have sat together and warred both. Robb thought of the stories of Torrhen Stark, the king who knelt, and Aegon with his dragons. He thought of ice and fire making truce on some southern field while long shadows fell across the world. He thought of Grey Wind's absence, a silence that had not left him. What would father have done? He asked. Your father would have wanted to know who she was, Caitlin said. Her heart, as well as her power. Then I will do the same, Robb said. Send ravens to White Harbor. Wyman or his heir will know which ships sail east. There must be some captain mad or greedy enough to seek a dragon queen's favor. We will send him letters, sealed with our dire wolf, and pray that seas and storms do not swallow them. He did as he said. Letters went east, carried by men whose names would never be sung, across gray waters that could swallow whole fleets without a ripple. Years turned again, slowly, while snow piled higher along Winterfell's walls and the dead continued to stir in the dark. In Meereen, Daenerys Targaryen sat her modest pyramid throne and weighed her own burdens. She had crossed deserts and cities alike to reach this place. Astapor's slavers had died screaming in their own chains. Yunkai's masters had begged for her mercy and found it harsher than they expected. Meereen had burned, then bent the knee, its harpy torn from its high perch and broken at her feet. For a time there had been peace of a sort, a shattered peace full of petty vengeance and old hatreds rising in the night with knives. She had tried to be more than her father. That meant staying when every part of her had wanted to sail. "The land feeds on you," Ser Barristan Selmy told her once, in the quiet of her private garden as Drogon wheeled far overhead, dark against a too vast sky. "You break chains and they grow back again. You cut off the heads of your enemies and 3 more sprout from each neck. This is not what dragons were made for, your grace." "And what were they made for?" she asked him, weary. "Conquest? Fire and blood?" "My brother screamed of such things until he died. And what did it bring him?" "Justice," Barristan said softly. "The right kind, for the right people, in the right places. You are no butcher, your grace, but you can be a sword for those who need one." The letters from Westeros arrived in that season of doubt, as if some god had timed them. A shy man from White Harbor knelt at the foot of her throne and presented a small iron casket, sealed with gray wax. When she broke it open, the first thing that fell out was a scrap of parchment with a direwolf's head stamped deep into the wax. She read them in her chambers, with Barristan and Missandei and Grey Worm standing by. To Daenerys Stormborn of House Targaryen, Queen across the sea, the first began, written in a hand that was strong and unadorned. From Robb Stark, by the grace of his people King in the north, Lord of Winterfell and protector of the realm of ice. He spoke of his father's honor, of the treachery at the Twins, of wolves who refused to kneel to lions. He spoke of snow piling high and a cold that did not yield. He spoke of dead men at their door. "I write to you not as supplicant," the last line read, "but as one ruler to another. Our father's histories are known to us both, I think. Yours took my ancestor's crown with fire. He knelt and saved his people at the cost of his pride. You are not your father, any more than I am mine. I will not kneel while my people freeze and starve to feed the South's wars. But I will speak of alliance if you come. We have need of dragons if you are as tales say. The dead do not fear steel, but they fear fire still." He had drawn a rough map on a second scrap of parchment, showing the wall, the lands beyond, the long, narrow shape of Westeros like a sword thrust into the sea. There were small notes in the margins where his brother's hands had written childishly once, later scraped away and rewritten in a surer script. Winterfell was a dark blot near the North's heart. Under it, in a different hand, firmer, more deliberate, was written home. Daenerys traced the ink with one finger. "A king who does not demand I bow," she said. "He offers me talk instead of oaths, and he speaks of dead men. I have here such rumors from the men of the Night's Watch." Jorah Mormont said quietly from where he had remained in the shadows by habit. "My father wrote of queer things in his last letters before they stopped coming. White Walkers, he called them. Old stories. Hard to believe. Dragons were hard to believe," she said, "until they were not." "What would your brother have thought?" Barristan murmured. Rhaegar would have wanted to know if this king was worth song. The words came to her without thought. If he rules for himself or his people, if he is strong enough to stand at your side instead of behind you, would you stand beside him then? Jorah asked, resting his eyes from the direwolf seal. "The North is cold, your grace, harsh. Its people are proud and stubborn. They will never love you as your freedmen here do." "I do not need their love," she said, "only their strength, and my own." She folded the letters with care and set them aside. That night she climbed to the highest balcony of her pyramid and watched her dragons circle the city, their fires streaking the sky. Drogon came when she called. He landed on the balcony with a rush of wind that made the braziers dance, his talons scraping stone. His breath steamed in the chill. "The North," she said to him, laying her hand on his warm black scales. "Snow and ice and dead men, wolves and old kings. Will you carry me there, my love?" Drogon's eye, molten gold in the brazier's light, narrowed. He spread his wings. The wind that gusted from them smelled of smoke and distant deserts and the faint, hot tang of blood. In the spring that followed, Meereen woke to find its dragon queen gone. She left men behind to rule in her stead. to keep the worst wolves among the freedmen from devouring the rest. She left unsullied garrisons and a council of merchants and ex-slaves both to watch one another. She left Barristan Selmy and Grey Worm to bind the knots of law. She left her heart behind in ash and copper and chain. She sailed west with only what she could trust completely: her dragons and a fleet of ships bought dear with her name. Some were ships from the Reach bearing the Rose of Tyrell. Some bore the Merman of Manderley. Some bore no banners at all, only patched sails and men who had once served other masters and now served gold. The narrow sea was not kind. Storms rose out of nowhere, tearing sails and snapping masts like twigs. One ship vanished in the night with a scream and a flare of dragonfire as Regal, startled from sleep by some unknown threat, leapt into the air and blasted half the rigging away. Another sprang a leak that no amount of pumping could mend and had to be abandoned, its crew divided among the rest. Daenerys stood at the prow of her flagship, hair whipping about her face, and thought of the north she had never seen. A land of snow and stone, where men walked in furs and women's laughter rose white in the air and kings were not made by fire but by frost and blood. A land that might kill her or save the world through her. When at last the shout went up from the masthead, "Land! Land to starboard!" Her heart hammered in her chest like a drum. At first it was only a gray smudge on the horizon. Then it rose, slow and solid, into a line of snow-dusted hills. The air changed. It grew colder, sharper, the salt in it cut with the taste of ice. Her breath steamed. "White Harbor," said the captain beside her, his face wrapped in a scarf against the chill. "That there's the harbor of the Manderleys, your grace. The North's gate to the sea." She saw it take shape as they drew nearer. A great walled city built around a deep natural harbor, its stone wharves lined with warehouses and towers. The Merman banners snapped in the wind from the battlements. Beyond, the land sloped up into low hills and then dark forest. "Signal them," she said. The drums beat out the pattern they had agreed upon, a simple code, nothing like the fancy knots the Bravosi used. A black dragon rose into the air from her ship's forward deck, wings beating. Drogon screamed once, a piercing sound that echoed off the water and the city's walls alike, then swept out ahead of them in a great lazy arc, his shadow spilling over fishing boats and pierheads. The city went very still. For a heartbeat, nothing moved. Then men ran along the walls, pointing. Bells clanged, harsh and discordant. A small ship turned too quickly and nearly collided with its neighbor as the crew stared up. "Gods!" someone whispered behind her. "It's true." She wondered which someone had read Robb Stark's letters and believed, and which had not. On Winterfell's walls, a boy ran out onto a parapet, his cloak flaring behind him. It was not a boy, not truly. Robb had not been a boy for some time, but something in him that war and kingship had not yet entirely killed stirred like a child's awe at the sight of the dragon. Its wings threw shadow over the courtyard as it passed. Men shouted and ducked. Horses screamed. The dragon was larger than any tower, its scales black and gleaming, its eyes like coals. It turned its head as if to look down, and for a heartbeat Robb thought it had seen him, standing there with the wind tugging at his hair. The letter had been answered. He had left Winterfell 3 days earlier, riding hard for White Harbor with a picked company at his back. Karstarks, Umbers, Manderleys, a half-dozen men from each of the old houses. Catelyn had wanted to ride with him, but he had insisted she remain to hold the North together in his absence. "You will need a Stark at Winterfell when you bring a dragon back," she had said, half in jest, half in warning. "You say that as if I've decided to do it already," he had replied. "Have you not?" Her gaze had searched his face. "You sent her words of alliance. You speak of dead men. You know what you need." "I know what the North needs," he had said, which was not quite the same. "If she is what she say. Yes, she is. If she is not," Catelyn said, "then you will need to be stronger yet." He had ridden south with those words at his back like swords. Now, as the dragon circled White Harbor, he drew rein on a low hill overlooking the city and watched the fleet slide in under its shadow. Snowflakes drifted around him, lazy and sparse. the first taste of a storm that would come later. His men muttered under their breaths, some making signs against evil, some whispering prayers. "So it's true," said the Grachan's eldest son, Harold, his breath clouding the air. "Seven save us all. That thing would make a meal of gray wind." Robb's chest tightened, but he did not flinch from the words. "Gray wind is dead," he said evenly. "But it would. Do we trust them then?" Wylus Manderly said, his cheeks flushed under his furs. "My father spoke of dragons, said he'd welcome one to White Harbor if it came with a queen who could pay her debts. But that was when the phrase still lived fat off his generosity and he dreamed of vengeance. Hard dreams are easier by firelight than in the snow. We trust no one blind," Robb said. "Not lions, not krakens, not dragons. We trust what we see and test, and we remember who we are. The North will not kneel. But we might bend," murmured a voice at his elbow. It was small and dry and sharp as a knife. Maester Hallis, with his thin white hair peeking from beneath his hood. "There is such a thing as a bended bow that does not break, your grace." "I know," Robb said. "My ancestor bent once, and his sons spent 300 years paying for it." He thought of Torrin, kneeling before Aegon on some southern plain with the smoke of burned castles curling in the air. He thought of his own father in the throne room at King's Landing, where fire had burned other kings. He thought of Catelyn's voice. "You are your father's son." "I will not kneel," he repeated. "But I will speak to her as one ruler to another. We share enemies. That's a start." He kicked his horse forward, and the company rode down toward the harbor gates. White Harbor's lord waited at the gate in full dress, his great cloak trimmed with ermine, his belly straining his belt. Behind him stood ranks of guards in merman livery, their spears upright as a forest. "Your Grace," Wyman Manderly said, bowing as deeply as his girth allowed, "you are welcome to White Harbor. And so, I suppose, is our dragon queen, if the gods will it." "If the gods ever willed anything," Robb said dryly. "Have there been any incidents?" "None yet." Wyman's eyes twinkled despite the drag of age. "She sent her dragons aloft when they drew near, but only that once. I imagine she wished you to see. We emptied the streets near the docks as you ordered and posted men. The small folk peep from behind shutters, but none have bolted for the hills. Yet. Let's keep it that way." Robb took a breath. "Open the gates. Let our guest in." Inside, the docks were a tangle of lines and masts, even more crowded than usual. Ships jostled for space along the wharves, some tied up 3 deep, their crews shouting and gesturing in a dozen tongues. Robb saw sails from Slaver's Bay by their cut, even if they no longer bore their old sigils. Bravosi hulls sleek and sharp, tubby Westerosi cogs laden with goods. He felt as if he had stepped into one of Bran's old stories, where knights met travelers from far bays and strange beasts walked at men's sides. Then he saw her, and the noise dimmed. Daenerys Targaryen stood at the head of the gangplank of the largest of the foreign ships, wind snapping her plain white cloak about her. Her hair was braided back in 3 thick plaits that hung down her back, each threaded with rings of silver and pale, translucent stone. She wore no crown. Robb thought he saw the deliberate choice in that. Instead, she wore simple leathers beneath the cloak, dyed a blue as sharp as a summer sky, and a mail shirt worked fine as cloth. Her dragons were nowhere in sight at that moment, but their absence felt like a weight. Her eyes found him almost at once. They were the color of a winter sky, that clear, impossible blue that came only on the coldest days, when the world seemed carved from ice. She descended the gangplank step by careful step, as if measuring the distance. When she reached the foot of it, the wind gusted again and pulled a lock of hair loose. It whipped across her cheek, and she pushed it back with a small, irritated gesture that was so human it startled him. "King in the north," she said in accented but careful Westerosi, inclining her head. "I am Daenerys Stormborn of House Targaryen." "Your Grace," Robb said, inclining his own head in answer. He did not bow, but neither did he stand stiff as an oak. Robb Stark of House Stark, though my people sometimes put other titles ahead of that. Welcome to White Harbor. The North is glad to receive you. Is it? The corner of her mouth twitched, not quite a smile. I am told it is also wary. The North is always wary, Robb said. Of everything. That may be wise, she said. My people used to say that when dragons land, something burns. You landed without them, Robb observed. For now. She looked past him to the snow-dusted streets, the shuttered windows, the soldiers at attention. I thought it better to walk into your city like a woman, not a monster from the sky. I've not yet decided what you are, he said, before he could think better of it. That is why I asked you to come. You asked me for dragons to fight your dead, she said. That is why I came. They regarded one another in the sharp harbor air, two strangers whose fathers would have known each other only as names on lists of enemies and oaths broken. The men behind them shifted uneasily. A gull cried overhead. If you have come this far, Robb said at last, we may as well go further. There is a hall prepared for you on Manderley's Hill, warm and provisioned. We can speak there, with wine and a fire, instead of freezing our tongues off on the docks. A good thought, she said. My blood does not know this cold. Already my men mutter. The North's not quick to welcome Southerners, Robb admitted. But they'll learn to live with your dragons if those dragons burn something they fear more. Come. He offered his arm, as he would to a guest of his house. She took it after the space of a breath. Her grip was lighter than he expected, but there was steel under it. As they walked up the hill toward the Manderley Manse, a shadow passed overhead. Drogon glided above them in slow, lazy circles, his massive form cutting swathes of daylight into darkness. Men on both sides flinched. Daenerys did not look up. Robb did, and for a heartbeat dragons I met wolves. He wondered if the beast saw him as food, threat, or something else entirely. The hall was warm, at least. Manderley's men banked the fires high enough to roast an aurochs, and the thick stone walls held the heat. Daenerys shed her cloak at the door and stood in the light of the hearth, steam rising from her hair where snowflakes had melted. Robb watched his people watch her. The Karstarks murmured behind their beards. The Manderley's eyes glittered with half-hidden calculations. Maester Hallis's quill was already scratching notes on a scrap of parchment. You have more men here than I was told, Daenerys remarked, after a merchant's polite speech of welcome had trailed off into awkward silence. And more spears. The North has its own manners when it comes to guests, Robb said. We thought it best to show our strength, as I imagine you've done, bringing dragons to our harbor. Dragons are part of me, she said simply. I cannot leave them behind. He thought of Grey Wind, dead in his cage. I know how that feels, he said. Her gaze sharpened slightly. I read what you wrote, about your wolf. He saved my life, Robb said. Warned me when my own foolishness led me into a death trap. He died for it. Since then, I've tried not to ignore my instincts when they howl. And what do they howl now? She asked. That I'd be a bigger fool not to meet you than to do so. He met her eye. Sit with me. Let's talk plainly. They took seats facing each other near the hearth, with a low table between them. Their nearest advisors stood behind them. Catelyn Stark's letter sat folded in Robb's sleeve with her cautions. Wyman Manderley loomed to his left. Behind Daenerys stood a dark-skinned woman with quick, intelligent eyes. Missandei, her letters had named her, and a lean man whose face had known many winds and wars. Grey Worm, perhaps. Jorah Mormont was there too, Robb noted with a flicker of interest. Exiled bear, now dragon's shadow. Wine was poured. They drank, each watching the other over the rims of their cups. You know why I came, Daenerys said first. You asked for my fire. I asked for an alliance, Robb corrected. But fire will be very welcome. My brother writes of things beyond the wall that steel cannot hold. The dead rise at the command of something older and colder than any southern crown. I've lost men to them already, in the far meadows and empty woods. The snow hides bones that will not stay down. And you think dragons can burn them? Dragons can burn anything, he said. Not everything. There was a shadow in her voice. Some chains are too deep to see. My chains are snow and hunger and ghosts, he said. If your dragons can melt them, I'll gladly see them fly. And what will you do in return? She asked. You say you do not come as a supplicant, but you ask much of me, king in the north. The narrow sea is not kind. I left a city in need because you wrote to me of dead men. I will not throw away my people's lives and my dragon's strength for nothing. He appreciated the bluntness. What do you want? He asked. She held his gaze unflinching. Westeros is my birthright, she said. The Iron Throne was forged by my ancestors. It was stolen from my family by rebels and usurpers. I mean to take it back. The Iron Throne is twisted steel built on lies, Robb said, his lip curling despite himself. I sat in its shadow once, long enough to see what it was. It didn't deserve my father, and it doesn't deserve you either if you've any sense. She blinked, as if taken aback by the vehemence. Then she smiled, slow and wry. You are the first man I've met who tried to talk me out of my throne for my own sake. I'm talking you out of a southern snake pit, he said. Not out of ruling. There are kinder chairs. Perhaps, she said, but the realm is what it is. 7 kingdoms, bound by that twisted steel. Shatter it and you get 7 wars instead of 1. You have 7 wars already, Robb said. You just don't see them from across the sea. The Lannisters eat the Reach from the inside. The Greyjoys raid in the west. The Riverlands are ash and bone. The Vale sits its eyrie and looks down on us all. Dorne waits. Everyone sharpens knives. The throne does not bind us. It only gives us one place to point when we blame someone for our wounds. And what would you have instead? She asked. If not my throne? A realm of wolves and dragons and stags and lions who stand together because they choose to, not because an old man with a big chair tells them to, he said. A realm that remembers the true enemy is north, not south. If that realm needs a queen of dragons, I'll not gainsay it. But I will not kneel like my ancestor did and watch my people bleed for someone else's war. Would you stand beside me instead? She asked quietly. As an equal? He regarded her. In her eyes he saw hunger and weariness, and a stubborn spark that reminded him of Arya and Lyanna both. She had crossed seas and burned cities and freed slaves. She had left a piece of herself in every place she'd walked. She was young and she was old. She was tired and still burning. Yes, he said simply, if you prove yourself. She laughed, a startled sound. And how would I do that? Fight what I fight, he said. Burn what I cannot cut. Stand at the wall with me and my brother and see the dead in the snow. If you still want the South after that, we'll talk of thrones. But first we have to live long enough to quarrel over chairs. For a long moment she said nothing. The fire popped. Outside, the wind moaned around the eaves. Do you know what they called my brother? She said at last. Rhaegar. I know some of the songs, he said. My father didn't sing them. They called him a dreamer, she said. He read old books and played his harp and thought he saw the end of the world in every page. I used to think he was foolish when I was a child. Now I think he might have been the only one who saw clearly. He spoke of a song of ice and fire. He thought my son might be its answer. Then they died, and I was left with ashes and men who wanted me to be a sword or a womb or both. She looked at him, the firelight catching in her hair. Ice and fire, she said. You are very much your father's son, they say, a wolf of the north, and I am the last dragon, if the world is to be believed. Not the last, Robb said. You have 3. She smiled faintly. They are part of me, she said, half my soul, but I take your meaning. She rose, abruptly, and walked to the window. Snowflakes swirled beyond its panes, catching in the lamplight like floating embers. I will go north with you, she said, without turning back. I will see this wall and these dead men. I will set my dragons against them and see what burns. If I find truth in what you say, then I will stand with you against the dark. If you do not, Robb said, then you'll turn your dragons south, I suppose, and we'll have another war. But at least the North will have seen what you truly are before we decide what to do about it. Her shoulders shook once. He realized with a jolt that she was laughing. You are either the bravest fool I've ever met, she said, turning, or the only man in Westeros who has decided not to flatter me. You crossed a sea on the strength of my letters alone, he said. I doubt flattery is what you came for. No, she said. I came for the song my brother dreamed of. Perhaps I have just found the first note of it. She crossed back to him and held out her hand. Her fingers were small and calloused where she had held reins and hilt and dragon's scale both. Very well, Robb Stark, she said. King in the North, let us see this enemy of yours together. If we survive, we will speak of thrones and crowns and songs. Until then, he said, taking her hand. Wolves and dragons hunt together. The hall breathed out as if a great weight had shifted. Somewhere outside, Drogon screamed, a long, wild note that echoed down the streets and over the frozen harbor. And far to the north, a wind very old and very cold stirred in response. The journey to the wall was a slow grind through snow and fear. They went by land because dragons needed sky and sky needed clear days, and the north in winter did not always give them. Daenerys rode with Robb at the head of the column, wrapped in furs over her leathers, her cheeks reddened by the cold. It cuts, she said one morning, breath steaming, as the wind knifed under her hood, like teeth. The cold is a living thing up here, Robb said. You have to respect it. If you don't, it bites. Your brother wrote something like that, she said, about wind that kills faster than swords. He said. He always was better with words. He told her stories as they rode, to keep their minds from numbing. Of small Robb and smaller Jon racing along the walls of Winterfell. Of Arya with her wooden sword. Of Bran climbing where he shouldn't. Of Sansa dreaming of songs. She listened, and in turn spoke of deserts and cities with names that tasted of heat on the tongue. Of Yora's gruff counsel and Barristan's quiet regrets. Of dragons hatched from stone. Of smoke and salt and the sound a man made when he believed he was a god and discovered he was only meat. You've had more war than any queen your age should, he said once. So have you, she replied. At night they camped in the lee of hills or in the shells of abandoned farmsteads. Their fires banked low so as not to waste wood. Daenerys's dragons roost on nearby crags and ridges, their eyes glowing in the dark like coals. Men took turns on watch, not only for wildlings or raiders, but for the first signs of something colder. Have you seen them? Daenerys asked one such night, when the wind dropped enough to make speech easy. The dead. Robb's hand tightened around the cup of thin ale. Once, in the Wolfswood, we found a village that had stopped sending tithe. Thought it was bandits. We rode in with banners and drums and found silence. Doors open. Food still on tables, frozen. No bodies. Then we saw them, coming out of the trees. He swallowed. The memory still had teeth. They were men I knew, he said. A miller from downriver. A boy who once mucked out my horse's stall. All of them pale, their eyes wrong. Like ice. We cut them down and they rose again. We burned the bodies after, but I still see their faces when I close my eyes. I saw something like that in the House of the Undying, she said quietly. In visions. I did not want to believe it could be so. I still do not. But I have learned that the world cares little what I want. When at last the wall loomed up before them, it filled half the sky. Daenerys reined in, speechless, as the icy cliff reared above the trees, its surface gleaming blue-white in the weak sun. It ran from horizon to horizon, an impossible line between two worlds. She searched for the word. Big, Robb supplied. It is a blade, she said at last, driven into the earth. Let's hope it cuts what it's meant to, he said. Castle Black's gates creaked open too. Admit them, its courtyard churned to a slush of snow and mud by boot and hoof. Men of the Night's Watch gathered to stare. Black cloaks, hard faces, eyes of all colors watching dragons land on the far side of the wall with expressions that ranged from awe to terror. Jon Snow descended the wooden steps from the Lord Commander's tower with his cloak wrapped tight, Ghost at his heels. The direwolf was huge, larger even than Robb remembered, his white fur a stark flash against the snow. His red eyes narrowed as Drogon's shadow passed overhead, but he made no sound. "Robb," Jon said, his voice rough with cold and distance. "Jon," Robb answered. They embraced like brothers who had never truly been parted, even though war and vows had set them on different roads. "You brought her then," Jon said when they pulled apart, nodding slightly toward Daenerys. "She brought herself," Robb said. "I only sent the ravens." Jon's gaze moved to Daenerys. For a moment something unreadable passed over his face. Then he bowed, as deep as any lord could have wished. "Your Grace," he said, "welcome to the end of the world." She smiled faintly. "I have been to many ends," she said. "Let us hope this one does not break." Jon showed them the bodies first because it was easier than showing them the lack of bodies. They lay in a storeroom under the wall, 3 men stretched out on the rough boards, their skin pale as old cheese. Their eyes were closed, but even so she could see the faint blue shadow beneath the lids. "They were rangers," Jon said, "taken by the cold on patrol. We recovered them at some cost." "They look..." Daenerys searched for a word that was not dead. "Empty." "They are," Jon said, "until nightfall." As if in answer, the torches on the wall flickered. A wind she had not heard rise whispered around the eaves, smelling of old ice and deeper darkness. "Stand back," he said. He nodded to a brother standing by with an axe. The man swallowed and stepped forward, his knuckles white on the haft. Jon gave a sharp, short command. The man raised the axe and brought it down on one of the corpse's arms. The bone should have snapped, the flesh should have given. Instead, the axe rebounded as if he had struck stone. The corpse's eyes snapped open, showing an unholy glow of cold blue. Its mouth opened, a rime of frost forming at the corners, and it lunged upward with a speed no dead flesh should possess. Daenerys stumbled back, hand going instinctively toward a sword she did not wear. Robb's hand went to his own blade. Flame roared down instead. Drogon's fire was unlike any she had ever seen him breathe. It poured through the narrow doorway in a tight, focused jet, white-hot at its core, orange and red around the edges. It hit the corpse square in the chest and engulfed it. The thing screamed, a sound that was not the voice of any man. It flailed, ash and char sloughing from its limbs, and then collapsed into a blackened heap. The blue light flickered and went out. The other 2 bodies did not stir. Drogon drew back, smoke curling from his nostrils. His head reared, eyes bright, as if expecting praise. Daenerys' heart hammered in her chest. "Well," she said after a moment, "at least we know dragons can burn what steel cannot cut." Jon nodded grimly. "Fire and dragonglass," he said. "That's what hurts them. We have some of both. Not nearly enough." "You have more dragons than anyone else in the world," Robb said. "And you were wondering if you should cross the sea at all." "I was wondering if I should be a queen of ash," she said, still watching the smoking remains. "Now I see that if I do nothing, there may be no realm left to rule. Only ice." She turned to Jon. "How many are there?" she asked. "Of these others?" "Too many," he said. "We've cut down whites by the score and they still come. The ones who lead them, the White Walkers, we've seen only a few. But where one comes, hundreds of dead men follow. They are pushing south, Your Grace. Slowly, surely. Then we must meet them north of this wall," she said. "On ground we choose, not they, before they gather enough dead to bury us." Jon's eyes flicked to Robb. "That will mean marching men north into the snow," he said. "Men will die just from the cold. Others will die in the fight, and every man who dies there and is not burned becomes their soldier instead of ours." "I know," Robb said. But if we sit behind these walls and wait, we'll only buy ourselves a little time and less hope. We have to hit them where they are, hard enough to make them think twice. If they think at all, Jon said. I'm not sure they do the way we do. Then we'll have to hit them headlong until there are none left, Robb said. We have to break them, here, now, while we have dragons. He looked at Daenerys. She met his gaze. Something like fear and something like fierce joy warred in her face. Wolves and dragons hunt together, she said softly. Very well, King in the North. Let us plan a war no song has yet found words for. They called it later the Battle of the Shivering Fields. The fields themselves had no name before. They were simply open ground north of the wall, a wide expanse of snow and ice broken by low hills and scrub. Once, long ago, children of the forest might have walked there, or giants. Now only wind and crows did. Robb's plan was simple because the enemy allowed nothing else. Use the wall's height as a vantage. Draw the dead into the open. Hit them from above with dragonfire while northern spears and wildling axes held their flanks. Burn everything that fell. Burn it again. Do not chase, he told his men when they gathered in the shadow of the wall at dawn. Cloaks wrapped tight, faces pale in the weak light. Do not break ranks. Do not think of glory. Think of fire. Every dead man left unburned is a sword for them. Not us. We hold. We burn. We hold again. We'll be holding as they pile up around us, Harold Umberus. Aid his breath steaming, like fighting in a flood. Then we stand on higher ground, Robb said, nodding to the low ridges they had chosen. And we don't let the water get above our necks. Daenerys walked among the men with her dragons circling overhead, a cloak of living flame and shadow. Some of the men looked at her with awe, some with fear. She looked back at them with eyes that had seen too many battlefields. When the dead come, she said to a group of wildlings clustered around Tormund Giant's Bane, you will want to run. Don't. Stay behind the fire. Remember that they cannot cross it. My men are not cowards, Tormund said, bristling. I say nothing of their hearts, she said, only of their legs. He grunted, half amused despite himself. You're a sharp one, little queen, he said. I have had to be, she said. Mount up. The time for talking is all but done. They saw the dead long before they heard them. From atop the wall, Jon watched them come. At first, they were only smudges in the snow, like dirt on a canvas. Then they became shapes. Men, women, children, all in the rags they had died in, moving inexorably south. There were animals among them, too. Horses with torn flanks, bears whose eyes glowed the same unnatural blue, a giant whose massive form moved with horrible jerks. Among them, here and there, rode taller figures on dead steeds, their armor pale and strange, swords thin and glassy. Their eyes were stars of cold fire. The walkers, Jon said, his throat tight. They're here. Robb stood beside him, his gloved hands resting on the wall's icy edge. Beside him, Daenerys' breath steamed in the air. There are so many, she murmured. I have seen slave armies. I have seen cities emptied. But this, they've had centuries to gather their numbers, Jon said. Every man who's died north of the wall and not been burned is theirs now. Every animal, every child, every raider buried in a cairn and forgotten. Daenerys' jaw tightened. Not all of them, she said. Not if we do our work. She stepped up on the parapet and let out a sharp, piercing whistle. Her dragons answered like thunder. They leapt from their perches along the wall, wings beating, and dove. Drogon led, his black form cutting the air like a thrown spear, Regal and Viserion flanking him in green and cream. The dead did not look up. They had no fear of sky. That changed when the first gout of dragonfire swept across their front ranks. Fire met snow in a screaming hiss. Flames spread in a line, hungry, devouring. Dead flesh charred, then crumbled. The blue lights in dead eyes flickering and winking out. Ice cracked. Bones split with sharp, dry sounds. The walkers reacted. Their mounts tossed their heads. Their eyes brightened. One raised a hand, palm out, as if commanding the air itself. Frost coalesced around its fingers, a halo of cold. The next burst of dragonfire hit something unseen and parted, streaming away to either side like water around a stone. 7 hells, Robb breathed. They can block fire, Jon said grimly. We saw it once with torches. I hope dragons would be different. Then we make them concentrate on the dragons, Daenerys said, as Drogon wheeled overhead for another pass. Every moment they look up is a moment they aren't looking at you. I'd prefer they not look at me at all, Robb said, but his mouth curled in a humorless smile. Let's do it. The horn at the top of the wall blew once, twice, thrice. Below, on the low ridges and scrub-choked rises, northern men and wildlings alike braced their spears and axes. Shields locked, lines formed. Fires were lit in trenches they had dug, ready to be kicked wider when the dead came too close. The first wave hit like a tide. They did not scream, the dead. Their feet made no sound on the snow. They moved like a single thing with 1,000 limbs, climbing over their own fallen, clawing at shields, reaching with stiff, frozen hands. Northern spears met them. Axes swung. Men grunted and cursed and yelled. There was no clash of steel on steel, only the dull thud of blows against dead flesh, the crack of bones. Men went down. The dead pressed on. Robb fought at the center of his line, Longclaw's cousin in his hand. Ice had been lost to the Lannisters, melted into selfish blades. His sword's edge met a dead man's neck. The head rolled, and the body kept coming for 3 steps before it toppled. He kicked it into a trench where fire licked at its clothes. "Burn them," he bellowed. "Everything that falls, burn it." Torches flew. Oil splashed. Flames leapt higher. The dead recoiled, for once, from the heat. Overhead, dragonfire carved swathes in the dead's ranks. Where Drogon's breath touched, nothing living or unliving remained. But the walkers watched now, their icy eyes turned upward. One raised its sword, and a spear of pure cold shot into the air. It struck Viserion in the wing. The dragon screamed, a high, tearing sound. Blood, if it could be called that, flew from the wound, freezing into crimson shards before they hit the ground. Viserion faltered, his flight jerking. Another lance of cold shot upward and struck him full in the chest. Daenerys' own scream tore from her throat, wordless. She felt the impact as if it had struck her. Something in her chest splintered. Viserion plummeted, his wings flailing uselessly. He hit the earth with a force that shook the fields, dead and dying men alike thrown to their knees. He did not rise. Robb saw the dragon fall from the corner of his eye and forced himself not to look again. To look was to lose focus. To lose focus was to die. He blocked a dead woman's reaching hand with his shield, then lashed out and took her legs from under her. She toppled into the fire trench, flailing silently. "They can be killed," Jon shouted, somewhere to his left. "The walkers. When one dies, the dead it raised die with it. We saw it." "Then we have to kill them," Robb said through grit teeth, "or we drown in this tide." As if in answer, a walker rode forward through its ranks, its pale horse's hooves not sinking into the snow. Frost gathered around it like a cloak. Its sword glinted, a length of something that was almost crystal, almost metal, edges shimmering. Pointed that blade at Robb. The dead surged toward him, focusing their mindless hunger. He cut, parried, stepped, his arm already aching, his breath tearing at his lungs. A dead boy no older than Bran had been when they left Winterfell grabbed at his leg. He kicked it away, heart twisting. A great bear with blue fire in its eyes barreled toward the flank. Tormund met it with a roar, burying his axe in its throat. Daenerys saw the walker's gesture from the air. Her grief for Viserion was a raw wound, but it sharpened more than it dulled. She leaned forward in Drogon's saddle and urged him down, toward that pale rider. "Now," she hissed in a tongue that was older than any in Westeros. "Now, my love." Drogon screamed and dove. The walker raised its hand again, frost coalescing. This time, Daenerys was ready. Drogon's flame burst from his jaws, not in a steady stream, but in short, sudden jets, weaving. The cold spear shot toward them and sliced through empty air, too slow. The next heartbeat, dragonfire washed over the walker. For an instant, nothing happened. Then the pale armor blackened and cracked. The walker's scream was like ice shattering on slate. It flung its arms wide as if to ward off the flames, but there was no ward strong enough. In 3 heartbeats, it was gone, crumbled into drifting fragments that blew away on a wind that rose from nowhere. Below, a swathe of dead men, hundreds of them, tightly packed, collapsed all at once. The line sagged. Northern men stared, then shouted in astonished triumph. "They can die!" someone screamed. "They can die! Strike at them!" Jon bellowed, pointing with his sword at another pale rider further back. "At the walkers! Bring them down!" The battle turned. Slowly, grindingly. For every walker they could reach with flame, 1,000 dead fell. Their numbers thinned. They tried to pull back, their leaders learning caution, but wolves and wildlings and dragons pressed them hard. In the end, it was not dragonfire alone that broke them, but a girl's blade in the right place. Arya Stark had come to the wall like a ghost herself, slipping through lines meant to keep small bodies from walking into big wars. She had shadowed the column north, faceless among cooks and camp followers, and now stood at the edge of the fields with a sword thin as a breath in her hand. She saw the last walker moving along the flank, its pale eyes fixed not on Robb or Daenerys, but on Jon, who had pushed forward too far in his zeal. It raised its blade. Jon turned too late. Arya ran. She ran as she had in the back alleys of Bravos, feet barely touching snow. She ran as she had through the Red Keep's shadowed halls. She ran as she had along the rooftops of Winterfell. The world narrowed to the space between her and that pale, ancient form. At the last instant, she leapt. The walker's head turned, sensing her. The sword began to rise. She did not strike at its body. She struck where its hand met its wrist, where its sword hilt gleamed. Her blade, Valyrian steel thin and black, sheared through ice and bone alike. The walker's hand fell away, still clutching the crystal blade. Its eyes widened, if such things could show surprise. Arya reversed her grip and drove her sword into its throat. It exploded into a cloud of snow and shards. All around them, dead men fell and did not rise again. Silence spread, not instant but rippling. The rattling of bones ceased. Limbs stilled. The only sound was the crackle of fire and the harsh panting of the living. Robb lowered his sword. His arm trembled. Blood dripped from the edge, hot in the cold air. "Is it done?" someone whispered. "For now," Jon said, his voice hoarse. "There may be more. But these..." He nudged one of the fallen dead with his boot. It did not stir. "These won't be standing again." Daenerys slid down from Drogon's back, stumbling slightly when her boots hit the blood-tinged snow. She walked to Viserion's broken body. He lay where he had fallen, his neck at a wrong angle, his eyes dull. Frost clung to his scales, limbing each ridge and plate in white. His wings were spread half open, as if he had tried to rise one last time. She laid her hand on his snout. For a moment, she felt nothing. Then faintly a memory. Heat, flight, the rush of wind under wings. Her heart in his chest. "Thank you," she whispered. The wind took her words and scattered them. Robb came to stand beside her, his cloak torn, his beard rimed with frost. "I am sorry," he said simply. "So am I," she said. "He was part of me, but he died burning the enemy you called me to face. There are worse deaths." "There are," he agreed. She straightened and looked around. Men moved among the fallen, checking for those who still breathed, bringing wood and oil where needed. Fires burned in long, uneven lines where their trenches had overflowed. Smoke curled up toward a sky that was a little less cold than before. "You were right," she said, "about the true enemy, about where the first war should be fought." You were right too, he said. About thrones and songs. She met his gaze. In the exhaustion and ash, there was something new there. A shared knowledge that did not need words. What now? She asked. Now, he said. We bury our dead. We bind our wounds. And then we go south. To take your realm from a lioness who has sat it too long, she said. To give my people a chance to live without fear of winters like this, he said. With you, if you'll have a place beside me. She smiled, a small, tired, fierce thing. I crossed a sea, she said. I burned a city. I lost a dragon. I stood at the end of the world with you and your brother. I think I have earned at least a seat at your table, Wolf King. Queen of Dragons, he said. We have room for both. They came to King's Landing not as conquerors alone, but as survivors. The tales of the Battle of the Shivering Fields had gone south ahead of them like storm winds. Ravens carried word of walkers burned and dead men fallen still, of dragons overhead and wolves in the snow. The small folk whispered of it in taverns and marketplaces. The high lords debated it in their halls, weighing when to bend and when to resist. Cersei Lannister watched from the Red Keep's balcony as the combined host of North and Reach and Dorne filled the plains outside the city. She saw 3 dragons where rumor had promised 3 and counted only 2. She smiled, thin and sharp. They bleed, she said softly, to no one in particular. Good. But she did not understand that some wounds only make what is left leaner and more determined. The siege was not long. Daenerys had learned in Meereen what happens to cities when dragons run wild. She used hers carefully. Drogon and Rhaegal burned siege towers and scorpions on the walls, but spared the houses crowded behind. Robb's men dug trenches to catch any wildfire the queen might loose. Arya slipped through the city's forgotten ways and opened gates in the night. In the end, it was not dragonfire that opened the Red Keep, but a lion's weariness. Jaime Lannister walked down to the main gate in plain mail with no cloak. His hair had gone more gray since last Robb had seen him, and his face was more lined, but his eyes were the same. Mocking, tired, curious. I killed one mad king so he wouldn't burn them all, he said to Daenerys and Robb both, standing before the barred gates. I won't watch my sister do the same. Open the gates. Let it end. Why should we trust you? Daenerys asked. You shouldn't, he said. But you trust what you want. You've already decided to spare the city, or you wouldn't be talking to me instead of flying over my head and roasting us all. Let me do this much. If I betray you, you can let your dragon eat me. He turned and called up to the walls. Open it, he shouted, or stay up there and starve. Your choice. Robb saw the hesitation on the faces above. He saw fear and hope and exhaustion. Then he heard the heavy clank as the great chains began to move. The gates swung inward. They walked into the city side by side. Robb Stark in his plain mail and dark furs, Daenerys Targaryen in her leathers with snow still clinging to her boots, dragons circling high overhead. People watched from doorways and rooftops, pressing back against walls, unsure whether to cheer or flee. Don't look up, Robb said quietly to Daenerys, aware of 1,000 eyes on them. Look at them. Let them see your face. She did. She met the gaze of a woman clutching a child with a lion's toy in its fist and nodded. She met the gaze of a baker with flour in his hair, a whore with paint on her lips, a boy with bare feet and old scars. Each time, she let them see not only the Dragon Queen, but the woman who had walked through cities burning and kept walking. In the throne room, the Iron Throne waited. Robb had seen it once in another life when he had come as a boy with his father. It was as ugly as he remembered. A monstrosity of blades and barbs, dark with age and the blood of men who had cut themselves on its edges. Cersei Lannister sat before it, not on it. Her golden hair was thinner now, her face lined. Her green eyes glittered. So, she said, the wolf lived, and he brought a dragon whore with him. Daenerys's jaw tightened, but she did not rise to the bait. Your wars have ended, she said simply. The dead are driven back. Your enemies stand before you. Surrender the throne, Cersei Lannister. Let your son live out his days in peace." "My son is dead," Cersei said, her voice suddenly sharp. "All my sons are dead, and my daughter, and my father, and my brothers, as far as I'm concerned. All I have left is this city and this chair." "This chair is made of swords," Robb said. "It cuts everyone who sits it, including you." "Spare me your northern wisdom," she snapped. "You who raised banners against a king and broke oaths and sent my father into an early grave. All in the name of honor. Your honor cost more lives than my lies ever did." "We both know that's not true," he said quietly. She laughed once, harsh. "Perhaps, perhaps not. It doesn't matter. You've won. Are you waiting for me to fall to my knees and weep? I will not. Do what you came to do." "I came to end a war," Daenerys said, "not to gloat over a beaten woman." "You came to take what was mine," Cersei said. "My crown, my city, my life. Take them, dragon girl. And then pray you never have daughters, because they will suffer for your pride in ways you cannot imagine." She turned then, before either could move, and walked up to the throne. She laid one hand on its twisted arm, as if to steady herself. Then, with a quick, sudden motion, she drew a small vial from her sleeve and bit down on it. Robb moved, too slow. Daenerys shouted. Jaime cursed. Cersei's throat worked once, twice. Purple bloomed on her lips. She sank to her knees before the Iron Throne and toppled, dead before she hit the floor. Silence fell heavy as snow. "So ends the lioness," Jaime said after a moment. He sounded older than his years, dying as she lived, choosing her own ruin over anyone else's mercy. He turned to Daenerys and bowed, not deeply, but with a certain inevitability. "The city is yours," he said. "Do what you will with it. I have no more stomach for kings or queens." He walked away then, pulling his cloak free, and did not look back. Daenerys stood before the Iron Throne. Robb watched her, the air thick with unspoken things. She reached out and touched one twisted arm, her fingers tracing the rough metal. "My brother dreamed of this chair," she said. "He died for it, though he ever got close enough to cut himself. I have crossed half the world and bled half my heart out for it. And now that it is here, it's uglier up close," Robb said. "Most things are." She laughed softly. "I could take it," she said. "Sit and declare myself queen of the 7 kingdoms, and demand that you bend knee or be named traitor. I could make this my victory." "You could," he said. "Would you be happy?" "No," she said. "Happiness is not what thrones give." She turned slowly to face him. "What do you want, Robb Stark?" she asked. "Not for your people, for yourself." He thought of Winterfell's godswood, of wind in the leaves of the heart tree, of his brother's laughter. He thought of snow and dragons and dead men. He thought of a silver-haired woman who had stood beside him in fire and frost both. "I want a realm where I don't have to send children to die for lies," he said. "Where winter means hardship, not the end. Where the North is free to rule itself and stand beside others, not under them. Where my own children hear stories of dragons and dead men and see them as tales, not warnings." "And where do I fit in that?" she asked. "Queen of Ashes or queen of a new thing," he said. "A realm of wolves and dragons and stags and lions bound by choice. Not 7 kingdoms under one iron fist, but a pact. Each king and queen rules their lands, but we swear, on fire and blood and ice both, to stand together when the dark comes again." "And what of this?" She gestured to the Iron Throne, ugly and looming. "What of the things so many have killed for?" He drew his sword. For a heartbeat she tensed, then saw where his gaze had gone. "Help me," he said. Together, they dragged the throne from the dais. It screeched on the stone, leaving gouges. Men watched, astonished, but did not move to stop them. When they reached the hearth, they paused. "Drogon," Daenerys called softly. The dragon's head appeared at the shattered roof, his eye a burning coin. "Burn it," she said. Flame poured down. Iron glowed, reddened, then began to slump. The twisted swords bent and ran. The throne that had cut so many men's flesh melted into a molten heap, which then cooled into an ugly, unrecognizable lump of metal. Silence held for a long moment. Then someone in the back of the hall cheered, tentative. Another joined him. Within heartbeats, the sound swelled into a roar that shook the rafters. Daenerys watched the molten mess hiss and crack. "There," she said, "let that be the last throne made of fear. What will you sit on, then?" Jaime Lannister asked from the doorway, half amused despite himself. "A chair," Daenerys said, "or a bench, or nothing at all. I have sat on horses and in the dust. I can stand if I must." She turned back to Robb. "As for the rest," she said, "I will accept your pact. I will rule the Southlands that want me, not those that don't. The North will be its own, if it stands with us when needed. We will be allies, equals. Wolf and dragon," he said. "And if we find a way to be more than that," she added, "we will see where that leads." He understood her meaning. Marriage had been in many lords' whispered plans since her sails first touched Westeros. He had heard the murmurs. Part of him balked at the idea. Part of him did not. "We'll give the realm time to breathe first," he said. "Heal. Then we'll talk of weddings, if that's what we both still want." She smiled, a true smile this time, not sharp or weary, but something like the one she might have had as a girl before war. "Agreed," she said. The snows receded, slowly. The north thawed. Crops were planted in fields that had seen dead men walk. Children were born who would never know the feel of that cold wind, only the stories told by hearthlight. In Winterfell's Godswood, the heart tree watched as Robb Stark knelt before its face, not in fealty to any king, but in thanks. Arya sat on the branch above, swinging her legs. Sansa walked beside Catelyn on the path, listening to her speak of a father's honor and a mother's love. In the south, Daenerys Targaryen sat in a modest hall built from stone and wood, not iron and fear, listening to petitions from farmers and smiths. Drogon and Rhaegal roost on a hill beyond, keeping watch more than imposing terror. The realm was not perfect. Men still lied and stole. Lords still schemed. Old hatreds did not vanish overnight. But when whispers rose of shadows in the far north, men did not look to King's Landing alone for help. They looked to Winterfell and to the Dragon's Hill, to a wolf and a dragon who had burned their first fear together. Years later, when songs were made of that time, because songs are always made no matter who asks them not to be, they did not speak only of a queen on a melted throne, or a king who knelt. They spoke of a wolf and a dragon walking side by side across snow and ash. They spoke of a battle where the dead fell and did not rise. They spoke of a realm fractured and remade, not into one, but into many bound by choice. They spoke of Robb Stark, who lived when he was meant to die, and Daenerys Targaryen, who came when she could have turned away. They called it, in the end, the Song of the Wolf and the Dragon.